With me today is Stephen Hatchett. He's running for district attorney for the 10th Judicial District, which is generating the most interest right now, in my opinion. And I'm really looking forward to this discussion to see what his take on this stuff is. Stephen, this is an hourglass.
You need one of those when a lawyer's sitting here, let me tell you.
Do you think of this race between now and, what is it, March the
5th.
March the 5th, do you ever think of it as an hourglass and time is nigh?
No, it is. This race has moved quickly. You know, the qualifying deadline was December 14. So early voting starts February 14. So you only had a 60-day period before the start of early voting from the qualifying deadline, and then obviously March 5th. So I mean, this race has moved quick, and it is generating a lot of interest. A lot of people are paying attention to it. A lot of people have got signs out. You've got a lot of advertising going.
On the courthouse square at 30 2nd Street is the law firm of Logan Thompson Law. Since 1965, they have served the legal needs for the good citizens of Cleveland-Bradley County. If you've got a problem, they're no problem. Give them a call.
The role of the district attorney, unless you get caught up in the criminal court system, a lot of people, it's not a office that people pay attention to unless, unfortunately, they become the victim of a crime. Predominantly, that's when you become aware of it. So I think that also is generating a lot of interest. People are realizing, hey, this is an office. It's important. It basically sets crime control policy for the district. I mean, that a lot of people focus on your law enforcement agencies, but the law enforcement agencies, they make arrests. What happens to those people in court falls to the district attorney general's office, and that is really where your crime control policy kicks in, because ultimately one of the main things that has to happen is the people who need to be off the streets need to be off the streets. That's one reason why I have talked as much as I have about the need for the district attorney's office to have strong communication ties with our law enforcement officers, not just your law enforcement, not just the heads of the agencies. Okay, Bradley County has great law enforcement. You have Mark Gibson at the Cleveland Police Department, Steve Lawson at the Bradley County Sheriff's Office, Jody Musselwhite up at the City of Charleston. Heads of law enforcement, great. They do a great job. But you also have to talk to your officers that are out there on the streets every day. And that's been one of the things that I think has been lacking for almost a decade now. And it's one of the things that I'm going to change, because they know who the people are that need to be off the streets. All right, your law enforcement officers that are out there, that are patrolling your neighborhoods, that are sitting at your corner gas station filling up their patrol cars, they know who in their areas are the problem people. The district attorney has to get those people and get them off the streets. So when it comes to actual crime fighting policy, that comes from the district attorney's office. And that is one of the things that makes this such an important job, is to have policy coming out of the district attorney's office that will achieve those goals. You've got your drug-related crimes are up exponentially across the district. We've got some counties in the district that's had an over 200% increase in drug-related crimes. You've had rises in violent crimes across most of the counties. This isn't Bradley County. This is one of the other counties. But we had a 450% increase in murders since 2014.
Wow.
You have stolen property crimes increasing. We have some counties with over 1,000% increase in stolen property crimes. So all of that all of that right there, those numbers, all law enforcement can do is arrest people. What happens to them once they get in the court system determines whether those numbers start coming down. And that is the importance of the District Attorney General's office, is getting those numbers down. So that is really, that's why I'm running. That's really the only goal that I have, is to make our community safer, get these people off the streets that need to be off the streets, the drugs that are pouring into our communities. I've put specific policies out that I intend to implement. For the first time ever, I'm gonna spend some time here, Dee, if it's all right with you.
I'm good.
So for the first time ever, or at least as I can remember, and I've been doing this almost 20 years. All right, I've been a lawyer almost 20 years. 99% of the drugs that are coming into our community are imported. They're not here, okay? Back when I started as a prosecutor, Tim Gobble, our great sheriff, was the sheriff down here. You had meth labs, you had rolling meth labs, you had trailers that would blow up because they were making meth, you had cars that would be rolling down the road with a portable meth lab in the back and they'd blow up, and then we had shake and bake bottles,
right.
and you'd have bottles being found out on playgrounds where people were making meth. That's all done. All of our meth comes across the border. Cocaine, heroin, that was always imports. That's always been imported. You now, though, have fentanyl coming in, which also is an import. If you have an import market, it is subject to disruption just like any other economic activity. We have the vast majority of drugs coming into our community are imports. So as district attorney, what I will do and what I've asked the legislature to do is to codify that if we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that someone brought drugs across any of the county lines of the 10th Judicial District, we're going to ask for the maximum penalty in prison under the law that we can get. Now, that's going to be the policy of my office, whether the legislature acts or not. It's my understanding that there may be some legislation coming out this session that will codify that, put it into law. But that's going to be the policy of my office, period. If we can prove you crossed the county line, we're going to hammer you. We can't do anything about the southern border. It's not our bailiwick. Tennessee is here. Southern border's down there. But we can do something about the borders of the 10th Judicial District. This is a plan I've talked about extensively. I've talked about it for about 6 months now. I've talked to the vast majority of our law enforcement agencies, law enforcement officers. I haven't found anybody that doesn't like it. I haven't found anybody that has an objection to it. And quite candidly, Dee, I think it'll work. I think we have a once-in-a-generation chance to change things here, okay? Because if we disrupt a single speck of drugs that doesn't get given to someone who becomes an addict, we just change the course of that person's life forever, okay? That's going to be priority number one. We're going to basically make the 4 counties of the 10th Judicial District a giant geographic region where drug dealers just don't want to come. You just don't want to bring your drugs here. And that's what we're going to do. It's criminologically sound. There's research on making certain areas, certain regions, not be where you want to commit crimes. That's what we're going to do. These 4 counties right here, don't come here. We can't do anything about Hamilton County. It's not in our district. Can't do anything about Whitfield County, Georgia. Not in our district. Can't do anything about Loudoun County, Meigs County, all these counties that border us. But we can do something about our 4 counties, and that's what I intend to do. And it'll work. I believe it'll work. I've staked my reputation on it. I've staked the idea of my run for district attorney on it. I've talked about it. I've said, look, here it is. This is what we're going to do. And I think it's a good idea. It's not a good idea just because it's my idea. I mean, obviously, I pat myself on the back just like anybody else does. But I think it's a good idea, and I think it'll work. So just that right there, there's all kinds of other issues we have to tackle in the district attorney's office. But right there is a concrete thing that comes out of the district attorney general's office. There is just one example.
What would constitute What'd you say? Selling it?
If you cross a county line with the intent to sell or deliver, the statute says manufacture, but most, like I just said, we import, okay? Nobody's really manufacturing drugs here. So really, if you cross a county line with the intent to sell and deliver an illegal drug, and you cross any of our county lines, any of the 4 counties, okay? Because what we have right now is you'll have somebody in McMinn County come to Bradley County, sell drugs, go back to McMinn County. You'll have somebody from Bradley County come up to Monroe County, sell drugs, come back to Bradley County.
Where do they get these drugs?
Well, okay, so the 10th Judicial District, here's why this is
What is the 10th judicial? What name the county?
Bradley, McMinn, Monroe, and Polk, okay? Now here's why this is a, I believe it's a once in a generation chance. We are unique in that we have 4 major thoroughfares that come through our district. We have 75, we have Highway 11, we have Highway 411, we have Highway 68, all right? These are major thoroughfares coming through our district. So if you look, the Department of Health over in Nashville keeps track of drug overdoses, and they actually have a map. You can pull up a map and look at it, and they put little red dots where there's drug overdoses, okay? You look at our region, those thoroughfares are lit up, okay? That's where the drugs are coming from. The drugs are coming across the border, predominantly the southern border. We've got some coming across the northern border, but it's predominantly the southern border. So we're on a major thoroughfare for people to bring it anyway. So right off the bat, you have vulnerabilities in the 10th Judicial District simply because we have these major thoroughfares coming through. But it also gives us the opportunity, okay? That is a challenge, but it's like the old saying, challenges is just an opportunity in work clothes. So we're gonna go to work. Those thoroughfares are coming through, but if we make this region an area where people do not want to sell drugs, then guess what? You're just gonna pass on through. Because here's the other thing. Fentanyl pill right now sells for about $3. You can get fentanyl for $3. Now think about this. In a market economy, right? In any market economy, you've got 2 drivers. There's multiple drivers, but you've got 2 that can drive price up. Labor and supply, right? Disrupt either one of those 2, you're gonna raise the price up. So all these fentanyl pills that are flooding us, $3, $2, $3. We wanna drive that price up in this area, right? Nobody's gonna wanna do business here. Why? Why would you wanna do business here? And if you're driving the price up here and you're making people have to travel further distances to get drugs to bring back here, knowing there's an increased risk, which is also gonna drive the cost up, every inch of highway that they're traveling in order to bring those substances here to sell to our kids, our grandkids, increases the risk of them being caught. It increases the risk of an interaction with law enforcement. Disruption is what we're after. We want to make these 4 counties an area where you simply do not want to sell drugs. There's no profit to it. There's no economic benefit to it. Go somewhere else.
They said a baseball size amount of fentanyl could kill like a whole state. Is that right, or did I hear that wrong?
Well, fentanyl has dangers involved in it. Here's what's interesting. So 2010, maybe 2011, I prosecuted a fentanyl case here in Bradley County when I was a prosecutor down here. And a individual sold a fentanyl patch to another individual. All right, it's a powerful painkiller. I mean, that's what it is. It's a synthetic. And what people were supposed to do was punch holes in the patch and then chew the tiny little dots, right? In order to get high off of it. Well, this guy just took the entire patch, put it in his mouth, chewed it up, dead. Okay. So the dangers of fentanyl has been known for a very long time, okay? The fact that we have gotten in the situation that we are in now with fentanyl is simply because the district attorney's office was not being proactive, was not paying attention, was not watching. You can look at the rate of drug activity in Bradley County since 2014. It goes up, and it goes up exponentially. Per capita in 2022, Bradley County had a higher rate of drug activity than Hamilton County did. Now that's per capita because you got to control for the population.
Yeah.
That's the district attorney's office. That is entirely the district attorney's office. So the dangers of fentanyl were known, okay? There was no reason to not get more proactive, to not start trying to stop the epidemic that now is just washing over us prior to now. There's no reason. People should have been talking about it. And, you know, I don't say this as a political thing, but it's just a fact. I've been the only person talking about this. I'm the only candidate for district attorney who has said, here is the plan. Here's the problem. Here is the plan. Laid out specific concrete plans. I've been the only person standing up, citing those numbers, talking about the statistics, talking about the trends, because it's important to our community. It's important for these families out here raising kids and grandkids. This is the reality. This is what we're looking at. These are the challenges that we have to take on. And it's not something that just suddenly showed up. But again, I go back to, because I don't want to sound gloom and doom. It is a challenge, but the challenge presents an opportunity because of where we are now. If all of these dangerous substances have to be brought in here, then it's not like the old days. Okay, I was there for the old days. I remember the old days. But you don't have acres of marijuana being grown. It's all brought in. You don't have the meth labs anymore. It's all brought in. You still have some of the prescription drugs, but the prescription drugs are expensive. Okay, that's why fentanyl is doing what fentanyl is doing, because it's so daggum cheap. So, yeah, it's a challenge, but it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to keep, even if we get one person and we save that one person, we have an interaction with someone who otherwise was going to sell drugs to this person and make them an addict, and we get that person and that person's life takes a different trajectory, count it a win, right?
But so the district attorney actually sets some policies?
Oh, absolutely. The one that I just laid out, there is nothing in the law that says that crossing the county line is an issue.
So let's say right now, if you cross the county line with fentanyl, it's a crime to have it?
It's a crime. It's a crime, but there's no distinction made for the fact that you crossed the county line with it.
All right, so let's say I cross the county, let's say I have it, and just say I'm using it, I have it. What's the penalty for that, just using it?
Well, if you have, all right, so you're saying not to sell it.
Yeah, just say I like it.
Okay, you just have it for your own use.
Recreational.
Okay, then you're not falling under what I'm talking about. All right, so you're getting prosecuted for a misdemeanor. You're not where we are. Okay.
So there's a distinction between you're trying to set a policy that says if you're coming over here to sell it,
that's right,
or you're going to manufacture it, you're under a different rule other than a misdemeanor.
So here's one of the biggest problems that we have had for a very long time in this district is we have not differentiated between addicts and traffickers. Okay? You can have an addict who is a trafficker, you can have a trafficker who is an addict. The question is, what are they doing? Okay? So you can have two addicts who sell drugs to each other. They get small amounts, they've got what they got, they sell it to each other, okay? Those two individuals can be treated differently than the people who are trafficking it in, all right? because those two are not necessarily going to be the people that you want to keep out. Once it's in your community, it's in your community. There's nothing you can do about it, okay? The only hope, and this is why I've articulated this policy, is to keep it out. We've got to keep it out. So an addict who sells to another addict, violating the law, no question about it, okay? Now, there's a statute on the books that says if it's a small amount, if it's basically a casual exchange between two people who are doing drugs, then it's treated differently. That's not who we're talking about. We're talking about the traffickers. We're talking about the people who are bringing it in large quantities and then dispersing it out into the community so that these addicts are getting small amounts that they're then selling to another addict. Okay?
So we could use the term change the law.
Well, I want the General Assembly to codify what I just laid out, the plan that I just laid out. I want them to do it because I believe it'll be effective. I believe it'll change a whole lot of stuff for us. We already have laws in place to deal with what's referred to as casual exchange, okay? You're a drug addict, I'm a drug addict.
Say I'm smoking marijuana.
Okay.
And you come over and I give you a hit.
And I say, here's $10 for your marijuana, D.
Yeah,
whatever.
because I'm out $20 and you give me 10.
10.
Is that a non-violent crime?
Well, it's, okay, it's considered a nonviolent crime, but you have to be clear. We're talking about two different things. So under the law, that right there can be a casual exchange. If the district attorney's office treats you and I as drug traffickers instead of drug addicts, then we're going to spend an awful lot of time and resources on two people who probably are not worth that much time and resources, okay? So there's that. Now, we have to be careful when we start talking about violent crime, not a violent crime when it comes to drugs, okay? You have to be careful with that because you can get into a whole lot of stuff that changes all sorts of things. We're talking about policy now, okay? So, because all you have to do is look at Colorado, okay, with what they've done with legalization things. Colorado, you go look at their numbers, that's not something that people want. That's not something that people want here.
So it didn't do well for Colorado.
It did not do well for Colorado. Now, you've got a lot of people that are saying, well, the numbers are, you know,
skewed or something.
yeah, we have issues with how it went, but not what you want to look at. So is casual exchange considered a violent crime as a matter of law? No, it's not considered a violent crime. But policy, you've got to keep in mind, it can turn into something else besides what it is, okay? So I draw that distinction for you simply because what we're talking about is policy, overall broad reaching policy. So when I talk about the two drug addicts who are selling drugs to each other because they're addicts, hey, I've got $20 worth, give me 10 and I'll split it with you. Different animal than what we're talking about with traffickers bringing drugs in.
Yeah, I think that's a big distinction to me and to maybe and of course I don't use drugs, don't at all.
Right, that makes two of us.
But if I'm a guy here that smokes a little marijuana, I'm going to say, man, he's going to be tough on this what I consider a nonviolent crime.
Well, here's what I would say to that person. Number one, I don't know if they vote.
Yeah.
So if they don't vote, they don't get to gripe about it. In addition to everything else. But here's what I'm saying for a policy purpose, and here's why it's important. There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many dollars that are out there for prosecuting crimes, jail space, jail capacity. All of that's out there. Okay, we've got to prioritize what is important. Two people who are not trafficking. Again, remember what I said. The policy of my office is we're going to differentiate between traffickers and addicts. We have all kinds of programs out there for addicts. We have all kinds of programs out there for people who are wanting to get clean, who are not wanting to live that lifestyle anymore. I'm all for that, okay? Now, two caveats. Number one, can't be breaking into people's houses and stealing their stuff.
That's a different story.
That's a different story.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care if you want rehab. Now you have infringed on the property rights and the liberty rights of another individual. We're going to deal with you. Okay. So there's number one. Number two, again, who you are selling to makes a difference, right? I don't care if you're an addict and you're trying to feed your habit and you sell to a kid in a school zone, okay? You sell to a pregnant mom, you say, okay, now we're going to deal with you differently. So when we're talking about this as a policy matter, you got to draw that distinction. But we're going to differentiate between traffickers and addicts. And remember what I said at the outset of this. You can be an addict and a trafficker. You can be a trafficker and not an addict. It's what you do that's going to draw the difference for us as to where we put resources, okay? You bring a load of dope in to the 10th Judicial District, and remember what I said, you cross the county line, and we can prove that you were intending to sell it, deliver it, distribute it. I don't care if you're an addict or not. I don't care if you're trying to feed your habit or not. You're getting treated much, much harshly, more harshly than an addict who is selling to another addict.
Does the district attorneys here in the 4 counties, do they have a budget that they work from? Is there such a thing as, I mean, like the registrar's office, the assessor's office, they have budget? Or the police department, do they have budgets?
Well, you have, so each district attorney general's office is budgeted X number of assistant DAs, X number of support staff.
Is that based on population or something?
It's based on population, it's based on caseload, it's based on the number of cases that go through your court system. It's primarily predicated on that.
If you have more go through the court system, you get more assistance?
Yes, you can ask for more people. Now, whether or not you get them is a different animal, but you can. As far as...
So that'd be a reason to have more
crime.
More crime. You get a higher budget, right?
Well, yes, but at the same time, I guess it would be, is the increase in crime real, or are you padding the numbers just to get more people?
Yeah,
so,
wouldn't that come to mind if you're a layman?
Well, it would, except you're going to have some folks in elected offices that are going to be asked, hey, why is crime going up?
So eventually.
So that's probably going to temper that if someone were inclined to do it.
So that's what the budget's sort of made up. It's not like you get X amount of dollars and you can only.
No, you have, so each office then obviously runs, so everything goes through the district attorney general's conference over in Nashville. So they are like the clearinghouse of a DA's office is, it's like a law firm, but a lot of your day-to-day accounting, your day-to-day stuff that comes to you comes out of Nashville. Okay, so Nashville says, hey, you all need X amount of paper, you need X amount of printers, you need, so that comes from there.
And that's sort of different, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's over there. So all the bean counters are over there. The accountants, the folks that keep up with all of that's over there. If the DA's office has to spend additional money, then they send over and say, hey, listen, we've got this that needs paid for. Sends it to the conference for approval. Okay? So, perfect example, you can have say a missing persons case, and you're wanting to dig up the landfill. Okay, well, shutting down the landfill costs $1 million a day or whatever. So you're going to ask for money.
You'd have to ask for a special.
Yeah, you're going to have to get money. Yeah, to do it, because otherwise you can't.
You'd have to almost sort of not lobby, but sort of lobby them to
approve it.
Approve it.
Yeah. So I mean, that's when you say budget. It's not like what most people might think. Hey, you've got X amount of dollars to go do your job. No, you have people who have their salaries paid by the taxpayers. They're the ones going into court. They're the ones prosecuting the cases. And then if there's additional expenses or anything like that, expert witnesses, things of that nature. That all goes through the conference.
What's the difference between, if you get stopped for speeding, or what causes it to be a district attorney's affair versus just the police and the traffic court or whatever? I mean, where do you draw that line? Hey, that's a district attorney's issue.
So number one, is it a municipal violation? Okay, if it's a violation of a municipal code, DA's office has no interest in it, doesn't care.
Give me the worst municipal code violation.
Around here,
Yeah, what would that be?
probably not taking your trash out and not mowing your yard, quite candidly.
Yeah.
Usually if a law enforcement officer stops a vehicle for a violation of some moving violation.
Speeding. So.
Yeah, normally they're going to write a state citation. They're not going to write a municipal violation, in my experience. They'll just write a ticket and it goes to court. 95% of your speeding ticket cases, maybe even higher than that, the district attorney's office really doesn't have any involvement in them.
Could they?
They can, but it's usually only if someone contests the ticket and there has to be a hearing. Because if it's a state citation, then it's a criminal case and the district attorney's office is required under the statute to handle that case. But in my experience, the only time as a prosecutor, okay, for the almost 8 years I was a prosecutor, the only time I ever interacted with a speeding ticket case was if someone wanted to contest the case, and then there has to be a hearing, and the district attorney general represents the state of Tennessee, who actually is the person that says this person has violated state law by speeding. And it is the district attorney that represents the state of Tennessee. So I would stand up there, put the officer on the stand and say, okay, what happened? I radared him, I paced him, I whatever. Right. And then the judge does whatever the judge does.
So that would be like in an appeals case, if you appealed the ticket? Or
No, if you get a state citation and you don't get a municipal violation, you get a state citation, you go to court and you say, hey, look, I wasn't speeding, okay? Then at that point, the judge is just, in my experience, it's almost automatic. The judge says, hey, Mr. Smith here wants to have a hearing. He says he wasn't speeding. Okay, judge, put it up there. As the prosecutor, I'm standing there. The officer comes in. Officer raises his right hand or her right hand, says, I swear to tell the truth. Tell the judge what happened. Maybe 10 minutes. Maybe even that long, maybe even 5 minutes, usually not that much. I was running radar, I was pacing or whatever. This is what I saw, okay? The person accused of speeding, if they want to get on the stand, they can get on the stand, tell the judge, hey, I wasn't speeding, or here's what happened. Judge makes a decision, and 99.9% of the time, whatever the judge does with it, everybody goes on their way. There is a provision in the law that you can contest certain speeding tickets all the way out of, because they all start in general sessions court. I've never seen a speeding ticket start in criminal court. I guess you could, but nobody's going to do that. But you can take a speeding ticket all the way to criminal court and have a jury trial on it.
Is that right?
Yes. Now, there's certain statutory provisions, which I'm not going to bore everybody with that, but you can. I've never seen it. I've never been involved in one. Most people come in, tell the judge what happened. Judge does whatever the judge does. 10, 15 minutes, they're on their way with whatever.
What would be one of the more minimal things that a district attorney would get involved in? The minimal, I guess, crimes.
Well, so you have some misdemeanor offenses, dogs at large, livestock at large. Those are usually, it's more of a dispute between neighbors, but for whatever reason, one or both of them are deciding that they want to make a criminal case out of it. If it enters the court system as a criminal offense or an alleged criminal offense, then it is the duty of the district attorney to deal with it, okay? Now, number one, you better have a district attorney that has some wisdom, has some justice, has some discernment to decide what happened. I'll give you for instance, and this happened. This is a true story, and it happened here in Bradley County. So I was a assistant district attorney. I'm in Bradley County General Sessions Court. This was when Andy Bennett was still on the bench, so it tells you how long ago it was.
Andrew.
And the way it was set up back then, and to a certain extent they still do it now, depending on when you get arrested, instead of booking you in, they would just bring you straight into court and set you down in front of the judge, so that the judge can go through whatever.
Like night court.
Kind of,
Yeah.
but so these guys, I guess, had gotten arrested early that morning, so they didn't book them in. By the time they got them here, they just brought them straight into court. So I'm there, 8:30 in the morning. Judge Bennett always started pretty early, and these two guys are sitting there, and they're covered in, look like they're covered in blood, right? Mm-hmm. So I would, every morning, the same thing. I'd start going through there'd be a stack of warrants, and I'd call names. So I'm going through, and I call a name, and one of the two guys says, "That's me." Okay, fine. Well, I look at the next one, and the last name is the same. So I call it out, right? That's me, the guy sitting right next to him. So I read the affidavit of complaint, and they're brothers. And they ordered a pizza. And one of the brothers put something on that pizza. I think it was sardines, if I remember right, that the other brother didn't want. And the pizza shows up, and they get in a fight, and they roll all over that pizza. It ain't blood. It's tomato sauce all over both of them, okay? Now, did they get in a fight with each other? Yes. Did the law get called? Yeah. Did the officers correctly arrest both of them? Absolutely.
Guess, yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah. They committed all kinds of stuff that they did in fact commit, okay? But now you better have a district attorney that decides what to do with that case, okay? And that case right there, I stood right there with both of them. I said, "Hey, are we gonna have any more trouble out of you all?" No, this was stupid. So what I did is I reset the case 6 months off. I said, "Y'all are responsible for the court costs because everybody had to take time to deal with you all.
Yeah.
As long as we don't hear any more trouble out of you, we'll dismiss it. Y'all can go get it expunged off your record. Beat it." Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, could a district attorney make that a completely different case? Yeah, and over the last decade, we've had that happen, because now I'm going to give you the other side of it, and this is from my days in private practice where I am now. Mm-hmm. I had an elderly gentleman who used wood heat to heat his house, and you know this, I know this, but anybody watching this that don't know this, if you use wood heat, you're going to have an ash pan, right?
Mm-hmm. Always.
You got to take that ash pan out ever so often, so you got oxygen, and you got, so your wood heater will keep doing what it does. Yeah. So this elderly gentleman took his ash pan out, as people do, and he dumped it out. Now, he thought his ashes were cold. Now, you and I know this too, Dee, and anybody that uses wood heat knows this. It'll fool you, right?
It's tricky.
It can get you. The top layer is cold. You can put your hand on it. It's you think it's out, but there can be hot embers down in the middle of it. So this elderly gentleman takes it out, he dumps it. Maybe he should have checked, maybe he should have poured water on it, maybe whatever, but he dumped it on his property, and he didn't think there was a problem. Wind blew up, blew that top layer of ash off, blew some hot embers over, caught his neighbor's rice on fire. Okay? Not much, very little damage, and he gets charged with reckless burning. Right.
See, that's just
right.
That's
Reckless burning. So he calls me up, and I've known this guy for a while. He's a really good old guy, and he calls me up and he says, "Stephen, I got to go to court. I've been charged with reckless burning." And he tells me, and I can't believe it. I'm like, "You got to be kidding!"
Yeah, there's more to the story.
Yeah, I'm like, "You got to be kidding!" No, I'm telling you, and that was it. All right, that was it. That was the whole kit and caboodle of it. So I make him pay my gas money. That was all I charged him, was gas money, because it was silly. Shouldn't have had to do it. And we had about 3 or 4 court dates until finally I basically beat the DA's office down to the point that they just gave up on trying to prosecute that old feller. It shouldn't have been that, okay? There's you the exact opposite. Where's the wisdom? Where's the discernment?
That's scary to the average guy out here just living.
Sure.
Because that could happen.
Could happen to anybody.
To anybody.
Anybody. There's.
And if you know that story, there could be 50 out there like
there's hundreds, there's thousands.
You ever seen the movie Making of a Monster?
I have not.
You gotta watch that.
Okay.
You gotta watch that.
I will watch it.
Because that goes into sort of started out like that, and it.
Well, here's the reality, and this is one reason why, and I use this example, and I don't use it lightly. It's kind of it's humorous, but I don't use it lightly because. You ever watch the Andy Griffith Show?
Oh, have I? Yeah.
Okay.
I know every scene.
All right. So you remember the episode where Andy leaves town and Barney's in charge? Mm-hmm. All right. Barney locks up the whole town.
Even Aunt B and
Opie. Okay. So one of the things that you'll get, and this drives me nuts. So I have a degree. You know this, Dee, because you and I have talked a lot. I have a degree in criminology. That's what I went to college. That's what I studied. All right. I have a degree in crime. Mm-hmm. So I approach the district attorney's office, and I approach the job of the district attorney with that background, and it's important for the reasons I'm going to say. So you'll hear politicians say, I'm quote unquote tough on crime.
Yeah, I think that's a very bad thing for people to say.
Well, it sounds good. It's a good sound bite. But the reality is Barney Fife was tough on crime.
He was tough on crime.
Right?
He was.
Tough on crime. Yeah. Locked up the whole town.
Right. How'd that work out?
That's right. But how many people would say that Barney did justice in that episode? Nobody.
I'm going to say nobody.
Nobody, right? Andy comes back to town and Andy dispenses justice, right? Right? This is one of the things.
He even had that old guy that sat on the bench.
That's right.
Buzz Masterson was the guy that always played that character.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. But here's what I say to people when they talk to me about the district attorney and why it's important is you have to do justice. And that's hard, okay? That's hard. Mm-hmm. Everything that we've just talked about is about justice. Mm-hmm. When I talk about the drug dealers bringing drugs into our district, we're talking about justice because where does justice lie in that situation? That you're going to destroy lives, that you're going to ruin people? Where's the justice, right?
Yeah.
So your speeding ticket questions, where is the justice? Mm-hmm. What does justice demand? Because here's the thing, and I tell people this, when you go to a jury trial and the judge reads what's called the charge to the jury, not the charge is, okay, that's the indictment. But the charge to the jury, to those 12 citizens that are going to make a decision and render a verdict, okay? What that jury instruction says is you are to render the verdict that the truth and justice dictate, okay? Truth and justice, right? Let's go back to my two brothers with the pizza. What's the truth?
Truth is they got in a fight.
Truth is they got in a fight. Yeah. Law got called. There was a public disturbance. That's the truth, okay? But what was justice? Is justice what I did? I think it was, okay? There's the difference. There is the thing that you have to have in a district attorney as someone who will do justice. And you have to have someone, not just when you vote for the person to do this job, it better be someone who has wisdom, who has discernment, who has a willingness to do justice without fear and without favor. And if you don't have that, then you will have the things that you have said can be scary and the things that can be dangerous and the things that can be devastating. You have a district attorney who is not going to do justice. And that is one of the most dangerous things out there because you can have innocent people sitting in jail. You can have guilty people walking free. It is scary. It is dangerous, and it is why it's so important that the district attorney carry out the duties of the office, carry them out faithfully. And that is, the job of the district attorney is to seek justice.
And maybe to try to keep it at a minimum, because you don't want to just have it just to where you're just, you know, getting so many cases that you can get more help to and more attorneys to and more assistance. In other words, a district attorney probably shouldn't be what I call a hall monitor, but someone that's tough on criminals, but maybe not. Is there a difference between a criminal and a crime?
Well, okay, so yes, and that is a. I've said this. People have probably gotten tired of hearing me say it because it's a generalization, but it's accurate. Now it varies. So I say it's accurate, but it varies. But as a general matter, 90% of your crime in any given community is committed by 10% of your population, okay? So who are you looking for, all right? You're looking for that 10%. You're looking for the people that you need off the streets that don't need to be out there committing more offenses, okay? So there's number one. There's your first thing that you have to focus on. And I talk about this a lot with people, individualized justice. All right, here's the crime, here's the person, okay? The two brothers with the pizza, there's the crime, but here's the people. So you have to figure out what is going to keep your community safe. What's going to keep your community safe? And, well, let me back up. First of all, you got to make sure that there is actual proof that the person committed a crime.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing, isn't it, really?
Now, that is as a prosecutor, I prosecuted thousands and thousands and thousands of cases, Dee, and I tried a ton of jury trials down here in Bradley County as a prosecutor, and I will tell any person that stands in front of me, there was not a single person that went to prison after a prosecution that I handled that I had any question in my mind about whether they were guilty or not, okay? If I had a question in my own mind, then I didn't pursue it, period, all right? And that's one of the things that as district attorney, I'm going to make clear to all of the assistant DAs that work for me, you better have the proof.
Because you don't want to just have busy work where you're focusing on the 90 stuff and not worrying about this 10% of criminals
That's
out
right.
there.
You need to be focusing on the people that need to be off the streets to make our community safer. And that's what we're going to do. As district attorney, that's what we're going to do. Now, but back to your question about the crime and the person. So in any given situation where a person is accused of a crime, there are hundreds of factors about what exactly happened. And this is another issue that we've had in this district, and we've had it for a long time. And as district attorney, it's going to stop. You have, as the district attorney, as an assistant district attorney, you have to talk to the officer, and you have to talk to the person who is the victim of the crime. You have to talk to them. You have to know what happened, okay? If you don't talk to the officer and you don't talk to the victim, you have no idea what to do with the person. You know what the crime is, but what needs to happen to the person?
All right, now that's interesting. Would you be talking to the person's attorney? Would they say, oh, no, you got to talk to my attorney? Or would it be just literally call the person up and say, hey, Fred, did you really light that fire?
No. I'm not talking about the criminal. The district attorney doesn't talk, or the accused, I should say. The district attorney doesn't talk to the person accused of a crime unless the person wants to talk. If the person is represented, then you're not talking to the person, you're talking to their attorney.
But either way, you want to have their view.
Well, if they want to give their view, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, as a prosecutor, that was one thing that I always said to the defense bar is, if you got something you want me to know about this case, come sit down with me and tell me. Okay?
Because at some point you could say, you know, the old saying, you have to be able to face your prosecutor.
Well, you have to face your accuser.
Accuser,
That's a constitutional right that we all have, but it's not just simply that. So let's go back to what we were talking about. Here is the allegation of what occurred. This is the event, okay? And this event meets the statutory definition of a crime, okay? But you know and I know that there's all sorts of things that go in, right? The two brothers with the pizza, perfect example. So as a prosecutor, if the person who is accused wants to give their side of it, great. If they don't want to give their side of it, fine. But what you must do as a prosecutor is you must talk to the arresting officer, because that was the person that was out there, saw all kinds of stuff. You must talk to the alleged victim if it's a crime that's got an alleged victim, okay? Because there may be all sorts of factors that go into what you decide is justice for this person who is accused of a crime.
But should you, so there's three parties involved, the policeman, the victim, and the perpetrator.
Well, technically, yes, but I say technically for this reason. There's actually only two parties. There's the state of Tennessee, and there's the citizen who is accused of a crime. That's really the only two parties, okay? Nobody else's name goes on there. It's the state of Tennessee versus whoever, okay? The officer is a witness. The alleged victim is a witness, okay?
Oh, I see, yeah.
And I had an attorney tell me, he's getting up there in years, but he's been an attorney for a long time. But he told me when I was starting out, he said, Stephen, the person who has the mastery of the facts will win every single case. And that is true. So as a prosecutor, if you're going to do justice, you better gather up as much information as you possibly can in order to do justice, okay? And that means you've got to talk to your law enforcement officer. You've got to talk to the victim if there is a victim of that crime. And that's one of the things that has been a very, very, very big problem in this district for a long time, is no one is talking to the people who are victims of a crime. There's been, the Banner had a big newspaper article 2 or 3 years ago. The victim didn't know that the perpetrator wasn't getting jail time and came to court and found out. That shouldn't happen. Those conversations need to be talked about, because maybe jail time wasn't appropriate. Maybe jail time was appropriate. But if you don't talk to the victim, you're missing a large chunk of information that makes you decide as a prosecutor, do we seek jail time? Do we seek some jail time? Do we seek the maximum amount of jail time?
And
that's justice.
And do we throw this one out?
Sure. Is there?
I mean, there could be
a
that
lack of proof?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, he wasn't in that town. I saw him on TV or whatever.
No, well,
would you have many of them?
You will
I wonder
have
what the odds of that are.
Of someone being falsely accused?
Well, I mean, of somebody saying, okay, this district attorney just saying, there's no way that happened, and throw that one out.
Well, that's part of why electing a district attorney general is so important, is that is their job, okay?
It's almost the filtering of the first phase.
Well, it is. You are the district attorney is the gatekeeper. I mean, there is an old court case from the 1800s that says the district attorney is to stand between the government and the people.
That's right.
And to safeguard the rights of one and to pursue the interests of the other. So your job as district attorney, first and foremost, is to make sure that the person who is being prosecuted, there is it's called probable cause. I mean, that's the legal term for it. But you have to have a clear conscience in your own mind. This person did what is alleged. If you don't have that, then you have no business pursuing that case.
Would it be reasonable to say somebody goes out here and they get accused of this crime that they didn't do, the policemen say they did, and they say, oh, it's going to the district attorney. The way a district attorney is supposed to work is, as you say, be the liaison between the accused and the police, you could in some cases say, I'm glad the district attorney is looking at this, because if it was just the police, you'd always be guilty.
Well,
because they already arrested you.
Yeah, but all right. So let's go back to my brothers, my pizza fighting brothers.
Yeah.
Law enforcement shows up. Neighbors are upset. Fights broke out. They've wallered all over the place. Stuff's been broke. The police are going to say, "Hey, look, it's the old line that used to show up in movies. Tell it to the judge."
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Dragnet.
Yeah. Right. So it's not that the district attorney is necessarily the liaison between the person who is accused and the police. The district attorney's job, again, and I know I sound like a broken record, Dee, but it's to do justice, okay? So the law enforcement, and our law enforcement in this district is really good about this, okay? They are great about this. They will come to court and they will say, hey, look, this person has been a problem person. This person has not been a problem person. This person has never been convicted of a crime, but we're fairly confident they've committed hundreds of them. We've just never caught them. Mm-hmm. Or we've never seen this person before in our life, okay? All of that is invaluable to the district attorney's office, because the district attorney's office has to decide what to do with that person, okay? The idea that a law enforcement officer wants X, Y, or Z on any given case, that's not been my experience. Not in our district. Now, it may be in other places, but that's not been mine. I can't think of a single time where I had a law enforcement officer that pushed for a certain result on a person because they didn't like them, or they just had some issue
or
with
wanted
them.
to prove they were correct or something.
Yeah, I've never had that. Once a case gets to court, my experience as a prosecutor is law enforcement officers come in and say, look, here's what I saw, here's how it happened, here's my interaction with this person.
And y'all decide.
Yeah, do whatever you're going to do with it.
But here's what I did.
Yeah, here's what I did, but you do whatever you're going to do with it. That has overwhelmingly been my experience in our court system. And that is where the district attorney's office, again, you go back to what I originally talked about, your policy. My policy is district attorney, do justice. Okay, what is justice? And it can go all sorts of ways. Okay, it can be this case doesn't get prosecuted, right? Mm-hmm. No matter how loud people howl, it's not going to get prosecuted. Or this case is going to get prosecuted no matter how loud people howl. Right?
And there will be a trial. You're not
right.
I'm not the
ultimate arbiter.
The ultimate
That's
arbiter.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. You got.
Well, don't we live in a good country?
Actually, we do.
I mean, really, think about it.
Actually, we do. I tell people all the time, it's easy to criticize the United States of America, but our system of government is pretty dadgum good.
You ever read the book The Trial?
Who wrote it? That sounds familiar. Who wrote it? You remember?
Kafka. Franz Kafka.
No, I don't think so.
You need to read that one too. It was in France.
Okay.
The accused in France, and anyway, it's not the system we have, but it lets you in on the mind of how someone accused is thinking.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things, a lot of the problems that we have today on a variety of fronts, if people would get back to the fundamental concept of individual liberty, okay, which is what this nation was founded on. Mm-hmm. It was founded on individual liberty. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of the problems we have today could get sorted out if everybody would just stop and say, okay, am I infringing on someone else's liberty? Mm-hmm. Am I rightfully infringing on someone else's liberty? Nobody has those conversations anymore. Mm-hmm. We all have reached the point where it's just simply pointing fingers one way or the other. Everybody wants to fight about something. answer that question. And honestly, as district attorney, going back to that I have a book that sits on my shelf, and I've had it for a very long time, and it's the Constitution, it's the Declaration of Independence, but it's a bunch of writings from the founding. It's got the Federalist Papers in it. It's got Noah Webster's observations at the Constitutional Convention, and I recommend it to everybody. It ought to be required reading for every high school senior. They should have to read that book, because this nation was founded with a full view of all of its imperfections. That's one of the things today is people want to talk about the imperfections of the Founding Fathers. The Founding Fathers knew they were imperfect, okay? It's why they say it's to form a more perfect union, right? They knew. It's not like they didn't know. It's not like they didn't recognize that slavery was a problem, that slavery was a contradiction of the truths that we hold to be. They knew that, okay?
Well, they were smart, weren't they?
They were smart, but they recognized it. They knew that they had set up a system of government that could let the country get better, okay? So our system of justice is no different than anything else. It's the best system of justice on the planet as far as I'm concerned. And there's always room to get better. Literally our documents that create our nation were drafted so that it can get better. It can always get better, make it better. And that's really where we are now. That's where I am as a person running for office. There's things that have to get better. It's got to get better. We can get better. We're going to get better. And that's why that book sits on my shelf, Dee, is to remind me this is who we are. This is who we are as a nation. Don't get caught up in a title, okay? You're the district attorney general. No, you are a free citizen in a nation of free citizens, and that is important, okay? That's what's important. When you're doing justice, you're doing it on behalf of the citizens, right? That's what you're doing.
Not just on behalf of law enforcement.
Well, no, you're not doing it on behalf of law enforcement, because there will be times that as a prosecutor, you will have to tell a arresting officer, hey, look, this case won't work. This isn't going to happen.
Let me ask you this, Stephen. What are you? You're married, I assume.
I am.
You got what, 2 kids or 3?
I just have one. I have a 10-year-old daughter, Isabella. She's about 3 kids rolled up in one. So no, my wife Rachel and I just have one daughter. My wife actually, she runs Divergent Roads Counseling. She's a mental health provider. She has an office down here in Cleveland.
Is that right?
She has an office up in Athens. And she's been doing that. She's had her own agency for about 3 years now, 4 years. And obviously, her mom and dad actually live down here in Cleveland. And obviously, I take cases down here. So I mean, we're in Bradley County quite a bit, actually.
I see you all the time.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's just part of it. But no, we've been, how long have we been married? 12 years, 13 years?
Not long.
Well, I joke with her. I tell her it feels longer some days than others, but then I get smacked, and I decide I don't want to joke about it no more.
Do you think that this is a hard, or this campaigning, is it trying on you? Is it a mental anguish, or is it just a busy work, or how is that from a guy? Because I don't know what it's like to run for office.
Well, I'll tell you, it is busy. That's for sure. It's busy, but for the most part, number one, I have to say my wife and daughter, they have been troopers. I mean, they're out at stuff. It's pretty funny. People tell me all the time they'd rather see my wife and daughter than me. So it works out that they go with me to a lot of stuff, and I really I'm thankful that I have a wife and a daughter that can go with me to stuff. My daughter actually, she likes going to stuff. She likes seeing people. She likes talking to people. And to a certain extent, my wife does too, but she's got a lot on her plate. So it's hectic. I've not, honestly, I interactions with people overwhelmingly positive. I really can't think of any negative interactions we've had. I think people want you to tell them what you're going to do. They want you to tell them what you believe. They want you to tell them, who you are. And for the most part, if people disagree, they'll, be polite, head on their way, and you're on your way. So it's not, that part's not been bad at all. It is trying. You'll have people criticize you for various things. And it really, my wife gets madder about that than I do. I don't really get mad about criticisms, things, it's just part of it. But now she'll get tore up. That I tell people all the time, I'm like, Rachel gets mad. I don't really get mad.
Don't you think some people are just saying stuff off the cuff and they don't even really remember what they said? And
probably, I mean, politics can get ugly, and I think that's one reason why a lot of folks won't run for office, is because they don't want to deal with some of the ugliness that goes with it. But my experience has been this: if you know why you're running, if you're honest with the people, if you are willing to interact with folks, which you should. I mean, there's no reason not to. Yeah. I don't have anything that I can point to, Dee, and say this was a really bad experience. Now, is there a lot of stress that goes with it? Yeah. I mean, you're running here, you're running there, you're returning phone calls, but I would not say. Now, this is me. If you were to get my wife down here and ask her, she'd probably tell you something completely different. But I would not say it's been that trying. It has been hectic. The time period of how everything has went, that has been very, very hectic. It's been a very short time period. It's a March primary. Normally, it's a May primary. We're having to have a special election. So that
I didn't realize that. So that was a different than. You're right. That was May. Why is it March this time?
Well, it's the presidential. It's the presidential. So your primary is in March because it's a presidential primary.
Oh, I see.
But the DA's race ordinarily is on an 8-year cycle.
I see.
So we're having to have a special election.
Oh, I see.
So this ain't our cycle. Our cycle normally the next race will be in 2030. But so it's shortened the time period down, and that has made things a little more hectic. But it's other than that, it's not been as crazy as some elections you'll see.
You ever get tired?
Oh, yeah, you get tired. But it sounds cliche, but it's true. We've got challenges, we do, that have to be tackled.
But I mean, you personally, running for office, keeping a family, you got a young child, you're still an attorney.
I do,
and
but
you're running for public office. So do you ever just get tired?
I do, but you and I have talked about this because I've been on your show, all right? When you grow up poor, which I did, there's different levels of time. Right?
Your dad needed a lot of.
Right. That's right. the level tired. There's levels to it, right? So I'm not. This right here isn't enough to get me to where I would say, man, I'm tired. It's just not. Running for office it's hard. In some ways it's hard, but it's not. You go find me a guy that spends all day
Sawmill.
That guy.
Did you ever finish your swimming pool?
I did, but let me tell you, I'm glad you asked me because I may need you to give me some referrals to people. So one of my jets cracked, and I was losing water out of my swimming pool at the end of the summer.
Yeah.
And apparently it was a factory defect because those things shouldn't crack. It's literally the
just the housing on the outside or something?
the internal, so you know how your jets go through the wall of the pool and they fasten together?
Yeah.
That cracked, which is just unheard of.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to, before we reopen the pool in the late spring, early summer, I'm going to have to dig down, get that out, drain the pool below that jet, and put it back together.
Is there a way you can do that without going from the outside?
No. We have to go back in behind it because it hooks together. So I'm going to have to drain the pool down, cut the pipe,
Plus you got to go under the apron, I guess.
Yes, I got to go under the concrete ring that's around it. So maybe calling you to say, hey, Dee, I need you to tell me somebody that knows how to.
I know a guy that knows how to do it.
The good news is, so the way I did my pool is I did pavers. So there's a concrete pad that's about, I don't know, that big. And then it's gravel.
Apron, they call it.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the apron is about that big.
Yeah.
And it's gravel. The side where the jets are, it's gravel. So if I can get under the apron and get directly to that jet, right?
Yep.
And cut the pipe, get the jet out, put the new jet in, put the pipe back, then all I'm doing is taking up about 6 or 7, well, probably not even that many, 4 or 5 pavers, because they're 12 by, or no, they're 16 by 16 pavers. So I'm taking them up, and then I'm basically going down in under that apron.
I wonder if you could eliminate that jet.
I can.
And then that would solve the leak, right?
Yes. Well, we've got it stopped. We've technically plugged it now, but the pool is a pretty large pool, and it's supposed to have 3 jets running.
Yeah.
So I don't know what would happen on that, but
I'd end up with 3 jets for the cobblers. Kids have no shoes.
Yes.
That's the way my house is. I got a cabinet door that's been nearly off for about 3 years, and here I put cabinets in people's houses.
Well,
this whole time.
What you don't have is a wife and daughter who loves a pool and expects that pool to be running functional come warm weather. But so actually, I'll just ask you while we're sitting here. So here's the question. You got gravel, obviously. How do you dig down into gravel and keep the gravel out of the space?
You can't do it. You just have to let it cave in until it stops.
That's not the answer I was looking for, Dee.
But it will stop. It'll slope down just a minimal amount.
Yeah, it's still not the answer I was
and
looking
you don't
for,
want to
Dee.
get it. You got to be careful getting in there because you.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's not. I was expecting a much more technical response. No,
you were wanting a magic bullet.
Well, I do. I would prefer a magic bullet, but no. Back to your question, Dee. It's fine. I mean, this is important. This is something that it's important to our community. It's why I'm running. So tired doesn't enter into the equation. I mean, it's fine. The campaign's going good. We like where we're at. We like the way things are going. We're excited. It's good.
When's early voting?
February 14th.
February 14th. Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I know, right?
February 14th.
February 14th through February 27th, and then
and then a lull, and then the elections
March 5th.
March 5th.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, around here, it's over after early voting. I mean, that most people.
You think so?
Well, the vast majority of people vote in early voting. I mean, it just you could. I guess you potentially could have something happen on election
Used to,
day.
it was just the opposite, wasn't it?
That was always how I remembered it.
I always remember it was more on
early.
election day, and then.
Yeah.
But I think times have changed. Well, what it is, they have more time for you to vote early. We used to, it was just a few days, 1 or 2 days, you know.
Yeah, I think most people early vote. Well, I know most people early vote now. I mean, we look at the numbers. We've pulled all the numbers from prior elections and things of that nature. So, I mean, you could have something unusual happen on election day, but statistically, early voting decides it by wide margin. Most of your votes are in over the course of early voting.
Are you nervous?
No, not really, honestly.
I mean, you've put a lot of time and effort.
We have. We like our polling numbers. We are cautiously optimistic. I mean, anything can happen. You don't take anything for granted. You don't take your foot off the gas, and we're not going to. We're going to run all the way to March 5th. Honestly, this, again, it sounds like a cliche, but I felt like this was something I had to do, and win, lose, or draw, I've done it. And I'll move on to the rest of my life if the voters say, no, we're going with somebody else. If they elect me, I know what the challenges are. I know what the plans are. I know what I'm going to do to tackle them, and we're going to work hard. I mean, I've made it clear from day one. We're going to work hard. We've got a backlog in the criminal court system that's got to get cleaned up. And it's been around since 2015. A lot of people said, "Oh, well, COVID didn't have anything to do with COVID." We've got the numbers on it. It's been around since 2015. It's gotten worse and worse and worse. We got to deal with that. We've got the challenges that just exist on a day-to-day basis in a community as large as this is. We're a very large geographic area.
How many people are in our 4 counties?
So Bradley County, depending on which census y'all are going with, because I think y'all's numbers got recalculated. Y'all are at 106?
106,000 people.
Somewhere around there. Monroe County is 56, so we're up to 162,000.
Boy.
McMinn County is about 50,000, so we're up to 206,000. Polk County, 26.
Only 26,000 in Polk County.
It might be more. I don't remember if I saw
A 250,000 people.
Oh yeah, we're at 250,000 easy. Polk County might be 32. Polk County might be 32. I don't remember their census numbers off the top of my head, but they might be 32. But yeah, we're over 250,000 people.
You love this district?
I do. It's home. My family has lived in this district since the 1700s. I do. I love it. I want it to be the best it possibly can be. And like I said, I mean, we've got challenges, but we've got opportunities, and I don't want to see those opportunities get by us. I want to see us do well. I want to see things change. I want people to look around and say, yeah, this is a good place. We like it here. This is, I am proud of this area. I'm proud of my heritage. I'm proud of all that, and I want to give back. Honestly, I want it better. Can always be better, a more perfect union, and that's what I want.
Thank you.
Good to see you, dude.